Welcome back to the Mustache Multiverse, your one stop shop for everything movies, superheroes, and more. Once again, I'm Sam,
And I'm Alex.
and we are your friendly neighborhood hosts through this multiverse. So let's dive into our topic of the day.
Today, we're talking all about reading, specifically how we found our way back to books as adults. We'll share what sparked our interest in reading again, as well as the books we're currently reading and the books we have sitting on our to be read list. We'll also go through some simple habits that helped us get back into reading without making it feel like homework. So, whether you're a really big reader already or you're trying to get back into the habit, this episode is going to be about making readable more enjoyable. So let's dive in and talk about our stories. And why don't you kick us off?
Reading is a complex topic for me. I was a pretty terrible reader. I would say
No, buddy.
90. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
What?
Oh, yeah.
You?
Yeah. Yeah. So, notably in our friend group, I was a bad reader or not reader. I didn't read anything. So, it's hard to be bad
I
at
wouldn't,
something you don't do.
honestly, yeah, I wouldn't know if you were a bad reader or not.
And it was something I had no interest in, right? It wasn't like I was reading, like there were things I wanted to read and I just didn't like have the time. I just had no interest in the medium at that point of like reading a book, right? I feel like we were in the age of like incredible movies coming out, incredible TV that was coming out. I had no interest of going outside of that to find something else. I was listening to good podcasts, no interest in reading.
Yeah, we had our video games, like we already talked about in a previous episode. Like we had our world that we were in.
So I think it was a comment from my wife to the both of us that was whatever you do, whatever, if you want to learn new skills, or if you want to do something, you should try it before you turn 30, or else you may not try it.
And you turned 30 like a while ago. I'm just barely there, but you've been 30 a long time, dude.
I am incredibly hip, I think is the
She probably
problem.
gave you this challenge like almost a decade ago.
Not a decade ago. I am so young
I
and
don't know.
cool.
You're right. Yeah. No, yeah. Right. You're so cool and young and
I'm
hip.
so slightly older than you. I know it scared me. I don't know if it scared you, but I was like, I need to figure out things that I'm doing with my life.
Yeah, I feel like specifically what you told me is that she told you that like things about who you are as a person really start settling in when you turn 30. And yeah, that is a scary thought
That was
as you're
terrifying.
approaching
I
30.
immediately got outside and started running.
I would never like
It
running.
was terrible. I did it
Why would you
once
do
and I was
that?
like, if I don't like it now, I'm not gonna like it then.
Yeah, yeah. There's other things.
But I got more into physical fitness, and reading was the other big one for me, is I was like, "Let's give this another try." This is something I'd like to do. I like the idea of being able to, like, sit out on a porch and read a book, but I'd never done it. So let's give it a try, right? And where do you start? I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of us face that have stepped away from reading for a long time is how do you get back into reading, right? I know both of us read the Harry Potter books, but that was the last time that I read anything.
Right. And it's such like a vast landscape. Like there's so many different genres, different authors, different themes, anything. Like it's so hard to find a spot to dive into the pool.
I don't know what I like. I really like, right? Like we watch so many different kinds of movies, right? The same is true for books, maybe even more. It felt like it was overwhelming. I had no idea what genres I liked. I didn't know what content I liked. And I didn't know how to tackle reading a book, right? So there was two different problems, right? I didn't know what content I wanted and just the medium of reading a book, I didn't know what to do. So I know for me, I jumped back into Harry Potter. I read a couple Harry Potter books, but really where it started for me was rereading Percy Jackson. Absolutely loved Percy Jackson growing up. Incredible books as a kid. And so getting back into it now, I still loved them. I think that that content rings true today. It's still incredibly interesting. And for me, it really just got me back in the habit with something that was comfortable. I didn't remember every detail of those books, so getting to kind of rediscover those books after a long time, but then also just get into the habit of flipping pages.
Absolutely.
I
And even
really
if
needed it.
yeah, even if it's something that like you do know every detail of. Like I don't have quite the same story as you. My path was a lot more stop and start, but every time over the last 10 plus years when I was like I need to get back into reading more, I would always go back to Harry Potter. That was my comfort books growing up, my favorite series. I know the ins and outs of that book. I've read them countless times. I still, if I need something pushing me to get back into a book, that's always where I'm looking to start because the books are just that important to me.
I think that that's important, right? I think there's nothing wrong with going back to a place of comfort to try to get back into reading. So that's what I did, right? I think that's what we both did is you kind of dove back into Harry Potter. I dove back into Percy Jackson, but then tried to find what's the next kind of jumping off point? What's the next
Yeah.
place to go from there? So for me, it was reading Percy Jackson. Great. Now I'm going to read The Heroes of Olympus, and that's the sequel series to Percy Jackson that Percy Jackson appears in. Spoilers for
Yeah.
Percy Jackson.
Whoa. Okay.
Put that at the top of the podcast.
Yeah.
But right, like it's something I'd never read before. They were pretty chunky books, 300 to 500 pages,
Mhm.
and it just continued that journey for me. So I'm reading something new, but it's still not too challenging for me as far as the reading is pretty straightforward. and the characters are all we get a lot of new characters, but there's a lot of through lines.
Yeah, and for me, it was jumping into, The Magicians by Lev Grossman. Felt like a natural stepping point from Harry Potter. It's just often described as a much more mature version of Harry Potter, more college-aged version of Harry Potter, so for me, that's where I took my next step.
And was the reading more challenging? I have not read those books. So, yeah, for me, like, I went from young adult to young adult. Was from going from young adult to more adult books, was the reading more technically difficult?
It does feel like a bit more of a step up just by the nature of who the book's targeted at. Like, I think Harry Potter's targeted towards more all ages, but this book's definitely more targeted in the direction of high school, college age, or older.
So from there, I think you and I had a similar road from there, right? We've read some familiar things, or at least some familiar feeling things. At this point in my journey, I was not that far in. I think that that's another thing to remember is after you read a couple books, you really get into the swing of things. I started enjoying it. It started becoming part of my daily routine because I wanted to do so, not because I felt like I had to. I did have to
Yeah.
kind of force it the first couple months. Just say I'm reading an hour a day, and that's what's going to happen. I started to want to. I looked forward to that part of my day where I got to relax, let my brain slow down, and just focus on one thing every day.
Yeah, and I think that's like the most important thing when you're trying to get back into reading is you don't want it to feel like homework. Like I feel like growing up, homework was reading a book and then answering questions or something along those lines. You don't want to feel like you have homework to do every night. You want to feel like it's something you're looking forward to. You want to be excited to dive back in and see what the characters are doing and things like that. So you got to just find something that gives you that feeling of I want to sit down and read this tonight rather than doing something else with my time.
Completely agree. So I was looking for that. How do I engage in what's happening right now? I'd read books that were at that time, I don't know, 10, 15 years old. I wanted to see what is the world of fantasy hold for me right now. And that was an important choice as well. I'd read a lot of what would be considered probably fantasy books. And I'm like, this seems like a comfortable genre for me. What does fantasy today look like? And this is just a sample size. So I want to jump into a new fantasy book. And so for us, I think we picked up right at a crucial point in history where a very popular book was coming out and it took over the world. And that was Fourth Wing.
Yes, the fourth
I
wing. The man.
I
I
owe
remember
so much of my
you
reading journey to Fourth Wing.
I remember you getting me onto this series of being like, "Dude, you gotta jump in. It's so exciting. It's basically like Dragon College. Like, you wanna be in on this?" I was like, "Dragons? I'm sold. I'm in."
For all of our readers out there, this is adult content. I'm sure you've heard of Fourth Wing before. So viewer discretion advised. I loved Fourth Wing. The romantasy space was somewhere I'd never been to before, right? I had no idea about that genre. And it was an incredible jumping off point, really to introduce you to kind of an elevated version as far as like adult content for fantasy. I loved the college aspect of it. I loved the cast of characters. I liked how it really just felt like, we're going to school again, right? Those kind of dark academia books, but to a different degree, something I'd never seen before. I owe a ton of my reading journey to Fourth Wing coming out exactly when it did.
Yeah, absolutely, and that definitely helps re-kickstart me on my reading journey at one point. I took kind of a different path. So I talked about reading Harry Potter, reading The Magicians, loving The Fourth Wing. I love the fantasy space, but I was drawn a bit more towards the sci-fi books, and specifically, I liked a lot of the sci-fi books that you've seen in movies. So like my The Martian by Andy Weir movie was with Matt Damon, fantastic movie, even better book. Ready Player One came out few years ago. I read that book before I saw the movie. Another fantastic, fun sci-fi action, crazy story going on. A couple other ones. I don't know if you remember seeing the movie Annihilation, like probably like
Yeah.
almost 10
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago. Just so like weird and
Hmm.
trippy. The book was just as weird and trippy. But I saw the movie and I was like, there's a book too? What? Crazy. I got to check this out. So I did. So I went definitely more a sci-fi route with my reading. And I still would think I prefer sci-fi. Like right now I'm in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which you're caught up to the current ones, but I'm still back on book 2, about to be on book 3. Absolutely loving the lit RPG sci-fi world going on.
That's an incredible series. Just as an aside, before we keep going, I love Dungeon Crawler Carl. I am fully
So
into that
good.
world. I just finished Parade of Horribles. For those of you that are reading right now, incredible series. I highly recommend that to anybody. And again, it's one of those books where that first book, 300 pages, you don't have to read anything else beforehand. You can crank that out. And once you do, I almost guarantee you're not going to stop reading those books. It's so much fun. It's such a fun world and such a new, fresh take on kind of the sci-fi, fantasy, lit RPG space.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have anything else in your hero's journey of reading that you feel like we missed?
Yeah, I do.
Let's hear it.
So Fourth Wing, excellent jumping off point, but at the time, it was only one book. And so I really thought, I want to read as a habit, right? I want to continue to read and progress through. So what series can I find and commit myself to? And that's when I found the holy grail of book series, a lot of people's favorites. It's when I discovered Brandon Sanderson.
Here we go.
My I come from a family of readers, so I was kind of the odd one out in that aspect. Everybody reads but me. So my mom had bought me Mistborn a long time ago, and it was sitting on my shelf, and I was looking for series, and I picked up the book, and I looked at it, and I looked it up, and it was like, "Oh, this is part of a series, part of a wider universe, more of like a Marvel multiverse kind of book series." And I was like, "I love Marvel. I love this." It was described as an Ocean's 11-esque heist.
We also love multiverses here at the Mustache Multiverse.
Well, we sure do, don't we?
Yep, yep, yep. You were saying something about a heist. Sorry.
I love heists, right? Who doesn't love a good heist? You love a heist, I love a heist. We're heisting all the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like the idea of a heist in theory, not in
And
action.
I guess, yeah, we're not doing that many heists in action, but
Just saying.
heist in
Don't.
theory,
We're not approving heist with this podcast. Just saying.
a hero theory. So this heist book, right? It was not that long. It intrigued me because it was fantasy. It had magic. I dove in and I never turned back. For the next full calendar year of my life, I consumed something. It was like 21 or not in one. It was a ridiculous number of books.
Just an insane amount of books.
All from one author, essentially in one universe,
Mhm.
right? Is this Brandon Sanderson Cosmere. So I fell head over heels in love. As soon as I started reading, I never stopped. I never looked back. I just kept consuming. And the Cosmere is really where I kind of cut my teeth on the kind of deeper fantasy genre. Right, it was a lot more complex. I took notes when reading those books because I needed to keep the characters straight. I took notes on the magic, who knows what. It was like taking a college class. That's what I always related to. Is I felt like I was studying the Cosmere and discovering it more than just reading for fun.
That
I
feels like
I
such a
annoyed.
deep level of
It was
reading.
incredible. But
Like,
it changed my whole life, right? Is I went from a person who never read books to then wanting to sit down and take notes while reading a book. Not that that's necessary, but it completely changed my philosophy on reading.
yeah, everything I've heard is that Brandon Sanderson, his The Cosmere is just the best or one of the best sci or fantasy, I guess what you call it, multiverses that's ever been put to paper. That's definitely on my list for sure. I haven't had time to commit to the year-long college course that you're talking about, but it is one that I'm looking forward to diving into.
So that was, I would say, what got me to today. Ever since then, I've picked up series, I've put down series. I've really been expanding on what do I like? What aspects of maybe the Cosmere do I want to dive into? If it's a hard magic system, let's go read a couple books in that. If it's a cast of characters, let's read a couple books in that. So it's me trying to really refine my taste and read some of the largest names over the past couple of years, really dive into those. So like you said, right, Dungeon Crawler Carl, just getting up to date on that. Huge name in the space right now. So just trying to understand what's that like. Ended up loving it. Things like Red Rising. I just finished the first trilogy. I'll be diving into the second trilogy right now. Love those books. Incredible. I think that's on your list.
Yes, absolutely. I have the book sitting on my bookshelf ready to go for when I'm done with Dungeon Crawler Carl.
It's amazing. So it's a privilege. I think about this a lot. It's a privilege to live when we do right now because of the books that we get to read. Right, there is a plethora of past, especially in the fantasy space. There's a
Mhm.
plethora of books from the past that we can pick up and put down whenever. But we're also living in a time when some incredible works are still coming out.
Yeah, I would love to get your thoughts. How often do you ever dip outside of the fantasy sci-fi realm and dip into other genres, or do you like to stick in those genres?
I am trying to expand my mind. So I'm trying to expand my genres as well. I just
Mhm.
picked up some more, I think it's still fantasy, but it's more like mystery space. So
Okay, yeah.
I
That's a
try to
genre
keep an
switch.
element of it, right? Like I'm
Yeah, I
trying to
mean,
keep part of it.
Fourth Wing is romantasy or whatever you said before, so, like, it's a genre jump.
So I'm trying to, and I'm also trying to pick up on like the classics. So I've
Mm,
read all of these pages now, which is great. I hadn't 2, 3 years ago. And so I'm trying to say, now that I'm reading and trying to become a more well-read person, are there some of these classics that are really short that I could just start knocking out? So I picked up, I'm like halfway through like Fahrenheit 451, picked up
yeah,
things like Animal Farm, just little
mhm.
things that are still kind of in that dystopian sci-fi fantasy-esque realm. So it does feel closer to home, but something that's purposely trying to expand the way that we think.
Yeah, I was gonna throw George Orwell out there for, like, those dystopian yeah, like you said, 1984, Animal Farm, both fantastic for getting back into, like you said, some older books that still have hold up today and give some insights into certain aspects of culture of the world, and also, like you said, that dystopian kind of sci-fi, but also a bit of a genre jump.
It doesn't feel like too far of a leap.
Yeah, I always try to read a horror book around October every year, so I've dipped my toe into a couple Stephen King books. I don't know if that's I like a good scary movie. I don't know if that's for me though. I don't want to be
You're
scared when I'm reading too.
you're quite a brave boy.
Well, not when you see all the books that I've started and then dropped because they are way too scary.
Read one Stephen King this year because I was also trying to expand, right? And I read The Long Walk. Whoa, even that one, right? Like
Yeah,
it's scary, but it's not like jump scares and monsters. Even that
right.
one, too much for me. I had to only read in the daylight. I could only read like a little bit at a time. It was too much.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to jump into some tips and tricks that we've picked up on our journey. So if you are getting back into reading, maybe you can follow some of these tips as well to help you kickstart your journey. So my number one tip, or first tip, maybe not number one, is start small. Don't tell yourself I have to read 50 books in a year or I have to read for an hour every day. Starting for you, it might be reading a couple pages every day. It might be reading 10 pages a day. Whatever you can do that's manageable and gets you flipping pages is very important. And the more you do it, like all your muscles, your brain will be able to build on that and read more and more as you go.
Agreed. And I think it's important to have that sense of accomplishment, right? If you say, I'm going to read like 10 pages a day, 20 pages a day, it doesn't have to be a huge number, but having a goal and reaching that, and then having maybe not the largest books at first, right? So you have that sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
You went cover to cover, you completed something, you added that to the number of books you've read this year, or added that you've crossed off a book in a series. There's a sense of accomplishment that really drove me to keep reading. And I think that that was important.
Yeah. Jumping off of that a little bit, I'd like to say, and I'm sure you could make a case against this, but at its core, reading is reading. So it doesn't matter if you're reading the biggest books you can find. It doesn't matter if you're reading comic books, graphic novels, or small little short chapter books that you can read in a few days. Like if you're sitting down, flipping pages, you're reading, you're making progress. Like that is good. It'll help you build that muscle and get into reading even more.
Absolutely agreed, right? I took the college course approach of it where I wanted something huge, thick, 1,000+ page books to dive into because that's what I was looking for. That does not have to be everyone's path.
Yeah, and we've talked about some of our favorite genres here. You just got to find what you're interested in. You know, you can read fiction books, you can read nonfiction books. Some people like to say that, oh, if you're reading fiction, it's not the same as, or it's not as good as reading a nonfiction book. That doesn't matter. If you're reading something you're interested in, that's good.
I think anytime you step out of your own shoes, you're learning, right? I think that's where a lot of people think that fiction can kind of be just some form of escapism, which certainly it can be. Nonfiction can be as well. And so I think anytime you're stepping out of your own shoes and looking either at a fictional person or a non-fictional person, but trying to get someone else's perspective on situations, I think that that helps you grow as a person.
Yeah, totally. And then find a community if you can. We mentioned a little bit. We recommended books to each other that we've been able to talk about as we read, or we have our friend group. We talk about books we're reading. If you can find people that are reading the same books as you or similar books that you can just share what just happened, it makes it a lot more fun to send a text or get on the phone and be like, "Oh my god, did you read the end of the chapter? What'd you think of the end of this book?" Like gives that community element to it, even if it's an online community on an app like Goodreads or social media, whatever it is.
I felt it was an excellent conversation starter and really thought provoking to talk with our friends, right? It's not just, how's your day? How are things going? Which are great questions to ask your friends. You should ask your friends those
Definitely,
questions.
yeah. Ask your
Checking out your
friends how they're
friends.
doing.
But, like, it gave us something to deeply think about and consider each other's opinions, right? I had spent all of that time in one universe kind of staring down the barrel of this huge epic in front of me. Well, all some of our other friends were doing the same thing and getting something completely different out of it. So it's interesting for me not only to step into someone else's shoes, but also see it from someone else's perspective, the same story.
Yeah, and if you're here and you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you're also a fan of the Marvel movies or superhero movies. It's like when we would have a good post-credit scene after a
Mhm.
movie, sitting in the movie theater or sitting in your car after the movie and just talking about what do you think's gonna happen? Where's that gonna lead? You can do the same thing with your books.
Theory crafting is universal.
Absolutely. And lastly, kind of touched on this, you wanna make it something you're looking forward to. You don't wanna have to have homework. You don't want to make it something that you dread doing every day. You want to find books that you're interested in. So when you sit down to read, you're having fun. You're excited to get to the book the next day, things like that. So find something that is what you're looking for genre wise. Find a goal, how many pages you can read a day, and find a way to get connected to what you're reading.
And for me, I know we differ on this aspect, but pages were one thing, but I also got into the audiobook space. So, for me, I'm traveling quite a bit. So for me, it was easier to get an audiobook time in as opposed to flipping pages. Both I felt were powerful and both something that I wanted to do, but I've really become an audiobook listener, which has been great for me.
Yeah, I'm not anti audiobook. It just doesn't connect with me in the same way reading does. I can't feel like I can't get into the books as deeply as when I read. It just doesn't compute with my brain as well. So I've never jumped into the audiobook world as much, but I would totally agree. Like at the end of the day, reading is a way to get smarter, get other people's experiences, basically expand your brain. You want to find whether it's audiobooks, books, you're taking time away that you would be wasting doing something else like scrolling social media, playing random games on your phone, things like that. You want to find something that it makes you better every day, you know?
So I love reading. I'm glad we can talk about reading. I plan on talking about reading throughout this podcast, but please let us know what you're reading. Also, if you've got anything that we need to add to our TBRs are ever expanding. We're constantly looking for new things, and it can be in, again, any genre we're looking to explore. So please feel free to drop what you're reading and what you're interested in reading.
Yeah. And as always, leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks, everybody. Stay nerdy. We'll talk to you later.